11:02 a.m. on this Thursday morning. I'll go ahead and call the Metropolitan Policy Committee meeting together to order. So, Mr. McDonald, if you will call roll for us and attain a quorum, please, sir.
Good morning, and my pleasure. Judge Krebs.
Present.
Mr. Zahn.
Present.
Judge Scott. Mayor Guardo. Mayor Scrow.
Here.
Mr. Leindecker.
Here.
Mr. Oliveras. And Mr. Buckner. We do have a quorum.
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, item 2 is public comment. Is there any public comment this morning? Public comment. Any public comment? Hearing none, seeing nobody get up. Mr. McDonald, if somebody texts us in or something, let us know.
None at the office, and none online.
Okay. Third item is approval of our April 6th regular meeting.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Okay, I got a motion by Commissioner Zahn, seconded by Mr. Leindecker to approve the minutes as presented. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item 4 is an action item. 4A, it's our fiscal year 22 annual listing of obligated projects approved by resolution 23-06. Ms. McDonald?
Good morning again. This action item today is for you all to release for 1 month public comment period in accord with the MPO's public participation plan. The item is a little bit new from TxDOT Federal Highways. You all remember that we put together a 4-year plan, our Transportation Improvement Program list of projects. The listing that we have now, Federal Highways and TxDOT are trying to decide how to do the public process around it. So typically we just post the list of projects that expended federal funds the year before. We just put that on our website. But this year we got guidance from Federal Highways and TxDOT that we should follow our public participation plan on TIP projects that were implemented and used federal funds should go through the same public process. So this is a little bit new. I don't think you've ever seen this listing. And so in your packet, you can see the listing is by different types of projects. So you've got the list of 4 highway projects that use federal funds in fiscal year 22, the group projects for other maintenance and operation projects. Those are listed. Again, it's what mostly TxDOT put into place. Some years we have hike and bike trails that use federal funds. We didn't have any in 2022. I think we're going to have some in 2023. So this listing's pretty straightforward. Not much of a surprise. It's projects that you probably ran into cones or barrels trying to avoid over the last year. And so, again, it's an accounting that federal dollars were spent, people saw it, and we want to match it up. And so the request today, again, the TxDOT, they requested a resolution. So in your packet, you have a draft resolution number 23-06. That is to be for your action next month. We'll run this back through your technical advisory committee. It'll get its 1 month public input opportunity, and we'll ask for your approval next month. But for now, we're requesting a release for the 1 month public comment period, and I'd be happy to answer any questions on behalf of TxDOT projects.
Rob, I don't know if this is the appropriate place on the agenda, but sometime we're aware that Todd Hunter is trying to get funding to build another causeway to the island. Yes. Where would we come into play in that process?
It's a very good question. Yeah, we've been part of that discussion since a long time ago. We'll see what comes out of the legislature for one, but also as TxDOT puts that project into their processes, whether it's environmental clearance, preliminary engineering, it'll be listed on your plans, whether a 4-year plan, 10-year plan that TxDOT puts together and we all release, or our 25-year plan. So depending on how it progresses, you'll see it as part of a list. And because it's a high-profile project, we'll show you where it is on the list. It won't be. It's in Appendix G on page 320. Well, we'll call it out and say, here it is. It's in the 4-year plan. It's within TxDOT planning. So it could go into, I think TxDOT's reported it should go in their urban, the UTP for the 2024 or later. So once it does that, you'll see that. Could be a planning document that TxDOT can report on. It could go in the 2050 statewide plan as an amendment, or the 2050 freight plan that the state has. So all those plans have been mentioned as where that project is going to start showing up. And as far as we know, I know TxDOT, and I know they're not here to talk about it, but they're working to push it forward, and it's in the planning stage, right? So they've got to get through the planning, environmental clearance. Our experience with those kind of processes is probably 3 years to get the environmental clearance on a project, because it crosses water. And so you've got to talk to EPA, you've got to talk to GLO. The whole alphabet soup of agencies are going to want to weigh in on it. So as it shows up in our plans, we will point it out to not only you, but our technical advisory committee.
Yeah, sounds good.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that
No, second.
I've got a motion by Commissioner Zahn, seconded by Mayor Thoreau. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. For the minutes, please note that Judge Scott has showed up. Welcome, Judge. Glad to have you with us. Okay, that concludes the only action item we have today. We'll go into item 5. It's just information items. It shows 5A. We do not have a Harbor Bridge report at this time today. So 5B is the joint TxDOT and Corpus Christi MPO Regional Traffic Safety Task Force meeting recap. Mr. Casper.
Good morning. So the joint task force met yesterday. It was well attended, and we got good updates about the various goings on. As far as the wrong way task force goes, it has been wildly successful. They have stopped 2 wrong way drivers on the bridge in April. In the 2-month period since the task force started, just under 88 DWIs were caught on the bridge or in the approaches to it. Over 2,000 stopped with, I want to say, 2,000 tickets issued. So it's a very well situated. It's a problem that is in the process of being solved now. They talked about, the DPS talked about how long they're going to be there. And right now there's no plans. They're 24/7, 365 at that location. They are looking at the statistics and see, to try to reduce sort of midweek during the day staffing of that location, because it's not as efficient a use of resources to have somebody there. But on weekends and nights, they will continue to be at that site. TxDOT talked about their new pedestrian prohibited program. You've seen some of the stickers on the freeways and on the medians. They're trying to reduce the number of pedestrians that have been killed on the freeways. That is a problem in our area, and most of those pedestrians that were killed in the freeway were what they call accidental pedestrians. They were motorists that were stopped and were out, and not as aware, I guess. But they're trying to reduce those programs, and it falls in line with what the rest of our task force has been talking about. In fact, I just wrote down the numbers here. In the last 5 years, 65 pedestrians have been killed inside the MPO boundaries. So that's a lot of pedestrians being hit in our area. It's up almost 20%, and so that's a problem we're working on.
So Craig, those, I've seen them, is that just for our area? Is that going to be a statewide sticker?
That is, okay, so sorry to interrupt, ma'am. That is just for our area, and TxDOT deserves some huzzah for that. They actually, to get it to stick on, especially on the median, required a different kind of sticker than they normally use. They're using FAA stickers to stick on that, and because they wanted it to be reflective too, so that it really pops. And so they actually did some research and developed a process, the consultants, to stick it on there, because otherwise, apparently they slide the way with the normal application stuff. So that is just our area. The people here figured out how to do that with existing materials without having to do look for something new. So no,
So
that's.
what is the penalty? I mean, do our police officers get to write tickets for that? Is there a penalty associated with that?
Not right now. The pedestrians are prohibited, but if they're accidental pedestrians especially, it's a safety thing. I don't know about enforcement, but I can look and get back to you
Maybe
next
that's
month
the
on
next
that.
step.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions on
Any
that?
questions, Mr. Casper?
Go ahead. The other than that, we went through May is Bicycle Awareness Month and Motorcycle Awareness Month, and so they talked about some of those. And the Click It or Ticket program is underway. Corpus Christi, Gregory, Ingleside are definitely participating, and the reason for that is fatalities of people not wearing seatbelts are up 22% in the last 2 years. So it's a simple thing. It cuts your risk of dying in half, and people are buckling up less than they used to. So that's all from that task force. Any questions?
Okay, any other questions, comments on Mr. Casper's report? Okay, hearing none, we'll go ahead and go to 5C, which is a small area forecast process update, regional control totals. Mr. McDonald?
I've got this one. This is an interesting information item for you. We've put a lot of information in your packet. Let me kind of run through the blocks of it. The task force that you created last December on part of your prior actions. This is getting the group together of the Chambers of Commerce, EDC, your local governments, port, everybody that has something to do with the future growth in the region. So population and employment being the two big things. And so you set up the task force. We sent out a lot of letters. I gave to Judge one more letter and invite another person with some knowledge of that. So the group has been meeting for a couple of months. And even the military installations show up at those meetings, and the ISD show up. So we're trying to figure out by 2050 what our population will be for the 3 counties. And then from there, we're going to sub-allocate it from a county level down into what we call traffic analysis zones, but 600 geographic shapes that are based on census geographic shapes. So we get information from the census in those 600 things or blocks of information. And so your task force has been meeting. We also put in your packet a reminder from Dr. Yu from Texas Demography Center. She presented to you all last December. I'm not going to do her presentation again. It was on our website for a long time. It's a refresher of the state demographer sets most of these population estimates out to 2050 for each of the 23 MPOs in Texas. And so a lot of cities and counties use that as really the go-to source, because in our presentation they go through their methodology, and so they share that with whomever. They also ask, as Dr. Yu did last December, if any local area has better information that can revise the forecast, great. Please send it to them and they can bring it into their forecast. As I said, most MPOs use that number, and you can challenge them, but I don't know if we can afford a consultant to go challenge the state demographer in what they do for forecasts, because Dallas and everyone else accepts their numbers and methodology. So again, it's a refresher that it's a good starting point for us at the countywide level for numbers. But then, as I said, it gets a little interesting when you say, where's the growth going to happen within the counties, right? What city or what county is going to get the growth? So your task force is going to wrestle with that first. Then it's going to take it to your technical advisory committee. All your staffs will get a shot of it through the task force, the TAC, and then it'll come back to you over a set of months. Probably won't be done till at least later this year. And so one of the other things that we refer to We've hired a consultant with some of the money that you authorized us to go get. We got $2 million through a TxDOT grant, which is 100% federal. One of the slices of that is to do this small area forecast. So our consultant team we have on board, we have a final scope. They're going to come through the task force. You'll see them here at some month to give you an update on what they're going to do. So in the packet, I have their scope, the final scope. I wanted to touch on a few things in that scope just to give you a little forewarning of some of the depth that we're going to ask you to take a look at. And so we talked about the control totals, and on page, I think it's page 2, section D, work area D talks about the land use forecast. I'm not going to read it to you, but you can read it, and your staff and the task force, they've already seen this. So as I said, we're going to do the forecast down to those 600 geographic shapes. So that's the goal. We're already working on control totals, and I'm going to talk to you about population control totals in about a few minutes. The socioeconomic forecast is D3. We're targeting 2035 and 2050 as our target year. So we don't want to go all the way to 2050 and say, well, that's the growth. We're going to look kind of a midpoint. Say 2035 is a good, I guess, a place toward 2050 that we want to try to figure out. And so we have a model in a software is called UrbanSim, one of the best softwares in the country. It helps to do an iterative process with people, obviously the task force, the TAC staff, to start looking at how do you suballocate these regional control totals. And they base it on where, right now, we know where people were working and living in 2010. We have other information from American Community Survey and other data that shows, beyond that, 2016, 2017. So we don't have to rely on 2010 data. We're still waiting for 2020 census data. They're over a year late. For every MPO, which are 600 of us in the country, we're all waiting. But the feds have not extended our plan development timeline. So they're compressing our timeline. So what we're talking about today, we wanted to get you all started with population. But that's at the county level. So we're going to work really hard to, our consultant, use their software and start doing those sub-allocations. Under section E2, the scenario development. Key concept for the task force, the TAC, and for you all in the public is looking at how are we going to grow by 2050, right? The sub-allocation, typically MPOs look at, are we going to continue growth as we've grown in the last 10, 20 years? Or are we going to do more, say, infill? Everything that's vacant, it needs some urban renewal, are we going to focus on that? So we're going to ask these questions, or we're going to do a hybrid. A little bit of growth, say in one part of the region or another, but we'll ask everyone, why is it growing in that area? And so our jobs going there, is industry going there, tourism, schools, any slice of the economy, we're going to ask, why do we think it's going wherever? Because remember, our friends at the state demography office, they leave us after the control totals at the county level. They don't get into, well, it's going to go to Portland, or it's going to go to the south side, or it's going in by the fairgrounds in the county. They're like, that's all for you to figure out. So our consultant are going to take all of us through that process. And so, again, we'll bring that once they have some information back to you in the near future. Let me point out, I'll show it to you because we don't have a display. In your packet, you see a small spreadsheet. The arrows point to, these are just population at the 3 counties. So you can see population for Nueces, San Patricio, and Aransas, 2035 and 2050. I'll pause there as you look at those numbers. One of the things we had in our last plan, our regional population was over 600,000. That was state demographer numbers. So in 5 years, they've reset how they look at things, looking at the data, looking at migration, looking at all sorts of things. Again, it's in their presentation, and I won't cover that. But what they're saying now at the county level, we've got these numbers, and again, they'll be bracketed. So we wanted to show you that, get any reaction you have at that to bring back to consultant, your task force, your technical advisory committee members for any reaction. Again, no action today. We're just pointing out that right now, state demographer is saying these are the population totals for the 3 counties. And we're gonna go with these. Again, we may have a little warbling, a little plus up or plus down, depending as we get into more of the detailed discussion. But again, we're not challenging the state demographer. We can, but right now we're not until we hear from the experts on our task force and with your local governments that may say, okay, we think the number is going to be higher and here's why. And the state demographer said, tell us why and we can change our forecast. But we're not at that stage yet. We're just giving you, these numbers are real close to what she presented in December. So they haven't changed, but we're trying to keep our process moving. So we thought we'd introduce I don't think we did before Aransas County. But because the U.S. Census may cause us to expand or change our MPO boundary, we may be talking with Aransas County. Again, the census hasn't finalized their process. We have a year to figure out if we're going to change our boundary. So for now, it's easier to show it as opposed to show it 6 months from now and say, oh, surprise, we need to talk about Aransas County. So those are the numbers that we're dealing with. I'm glad to take any comments on those. And we'll go forward. And as I said, we'll bring back more information, in particular the jobs, the employment data, which we have sources of employment data, but we want to confirm that with census and other more recent data. So that's the information we have for today. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Okay, no questions. We'll go ahead then to 5D, the Corpus Christi MPO Regional Coordination Group for Federal Transportation Grant Updates.
Okay.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes. So as you know, your technical advisory committee serves as that clearinghouse of folks going after federal grants, raise grants or reconnecting communities. So 23 categories that different entities can go after and get some of the billions of dollars from the Infrastructure and Jobs Act. So what we have for you today is updated on a couple of those. The Port Facilities Grant. I think no one would be surprised if the port would be applying for some of those dollars, because if federal dollars are 80%, that's pretty good leveraging. The Protect is a resiliency and operations program. We have not heard of any local entities going after that grant, but again, the timeline is coming up. I think later this summer. In the table, I'll show you the multicolor table shows things that are about due and things that are past due. On the first page, we talk about the charging and fueling infrastructure grants. That one's due the end of this month. We know of 3 local entities that may be applying for that same grant. There's an opportunity for them to combine resources, but we know they're chatting about that. We'll report back if they do that or if they're successful in their grant. The Protect one is not due until August, so that's a little bit later on. Again, no one's reported through the TAC of applying for that. The transit information, let's see, the FEMA Transit Security Grant, again, due in a couple of weeks. We have not talked with RTA. I don't know if they're applying for that. They did apply for low electric bus grant, and so that was due on the 20. Where's that one? That was near the top of page 2. That was due on April 13th. So that one already went in, and also the bus facilities competitive grant. The last one is a reduction of truck emissions at port facilities. We think that may be something the Port of Corpus Christi would be interested in. And so, again, that's not until July. So that's all coming up. That is the update. Again, we encourage all of our local governments and other entities to combine resources, because we know in our experience with these federal grants, the federal government doesn't like to decide amongst a local region. They can't pick city versus county. They just don't know. So if the same grant comes in, they usually don't go too far. It's very rare. I don't think we've seen any examples in Texas of two entities in the same area getting the same grant, because these grants are federal, they're national, and so they kind of go through their process. So we encourage folks to talk, combine grants, and go get all the money they can. So we'll keep reporting out, hopefully, more successes in the near future.
Okay. Any questions, Mr. McDonald, on that? Okay. Let's go ahead and go then to item 6, which we will have an executive session this morning. Under section 5551 of the Texas Government Code, to discuss the annual evaluation of the Corpus Christi MPO Transportation Planning Director. At the conclusion of that executive session, we will come back into regular session with any results of that executive session in a form of a motion, okay? With that, I'll go ahead and recess the MPO meeting at 11:27 a.m. and we'll reconvene here in the conference room and we'll get our executive session. I'll go ahead and reconvene the Transportation Policy Committee meeting. For the minutes, please be noted that we recessed at 11:27, went into executive session at 11:29 a.m., concluded executive session at 11:58 a.m. As a result of the executive session, is there any business?
Chairman, if I may, I'd like to make a motion.
Go ahead.
I'll make a motion to raise the executive director salary to $161,500, effective immediately May 11th, 2020.
Okay, got a motion by Mr. Linedecker. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I got a seconded by Commissioner Zahn. Hearing no discussion on the motion, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Okay, and again, thank you. Thank you to staff. Y'all are doing a phenomenal job with this MPO, working with it, and we really appreciate what y'all are doing. Okay? A couple other items, I guess. Item 9, just update on some of the meetings that we'll be having. Our next Transportation Policy Committee meeting is set for June the 1st.
Yes.
Okay? No other business to take care of today. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Got a motion by Mr. Linedecker. Do I have a second? Got a second by Judge Scott to adjourn. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We're adjourned 12:01 p.m.